What's up, everybody? My name's Chris, and I want to share with you something simple, or fairly simple, that you can make with a chainsaw that sells really well. Now, let me give you my credentials so that you understand just how I know these things sell really well. So I've been a full-time woodworker and artist for 4 years now, and I do a lot of markets. I'm in the Winston-Salem, North Carolina area. That's important because it does play into pricing on items, which you're going to find is going to be different wherever you are for whatever your local market is. But I'm in, like I said, I'm in the Winston-Salem, North Carolina area. I've been doing this full-time for 4 years. Last year, I did 126 in-person markets, whether it be farmers markets or craft fairs. So I have a lot of experience selling my wares to the public. And these right here are easily the most popular thing that I sell. And I'm going to share some photos here. These are ones that I've made in the past, and I make them from this size here. Now, this one doesn't have a stem yet, but I make them all the way from this size up to some that have been as big as 600 and 700 pounds that you need to load on a trailer with a couple guys, and you have to roll them. I mean, they're massive. So I've got a lot of experience making these pumpkins and selling them. And they're fairly easy to make. This is actually probably the first thing I ever carved with a chainsaw. And as you can see in the video coming up, I just use a affordable Poland Pro chainsaw and some other really basic tools to make this pumpkin. Now, let's talk about why pumpkins are such a great thing to make and sell. Firstly, again, they're easy to make, or fairly easy to make once you learn how to operate the chainsaw and the tools that I'm showing you. 2, material is typically free for these. So depending on where you live and how much access you have to trees, obviously this is going to be different if you live out west and you're in a desert. But here on the East Coast, we have tons of trees and tons of different species, including this Eastern aromatic cedar. And so almost all the material that I use is free. It either comes from customers who have trees that have come down from storms. It comes from tree service companies. Friends bring me wood that they find on the side of the road. I mean, it comes from all kinds of places, and it's typically free. So this log that I used for this pumpkin was free. The stem came from a standing deadwood cedar here on our property. And other than, the things you're going to need like gas and bar oil, electricity, the little nail that I use to hold this stem in, and any sealer that you want to put on it, they're very, very inexpensive to make. Now, let's talk about what everybody wants to know. How much can you get for these things? So this size pumpkin, I sell this size pumpkin sealed with a Valspar deck sealer. It's a one-coat sealer, and I put little plastic feet on the bottom of it. I sell this pumpkin for $60. Now, I know there's a lot of people in the comments who are going to think that's crazy. Here's a couple things to point out. These are forever pumpkins. This pumpkin will last your lifetime. As long as you don't go throw it in the dirt in your yard and leave it there, it's going to last forever. Most people put these out for a few months every year, and then they store them away, in an area where they're not going to be exposed to the weather. So you're buying this pumpkin one time. These pumpkins actually came about for me because my wife took me to a pumpkin patch, and we spend $200 to $300 on decorative pumpkins for our front porch, and then they all rotted away. And that was the last time I ever did that. It's a lot of money to spend for something that's going to rot away. These don't rot away. You take care of them properly, you store them properly, last you forever. So they are one of those things where you buy it once and you're kind of done. That's another thing. Why I love making pumpkins and why these are so popular, I think. They're timeless. These will never go out of style. This pumpkin will be just as in style next year and the year after and 10 years and 20 years from then. It's a timeless piece. You buy this thing once, you can set it out every year on your porch. Some people put them in the home, but I'd have to say most of these, especially this size and bigger, end up on people's porches. So I get $60 for it where I live. That's going to vary wherever you are. It's going to vary based off of your market. How much of a following you have. I have spent the last 4 years really focusing in on my local market and building up a clientele base in the area that I live in. So it's going to be somewhat different for folks. And my prices have gone up. I mean, this pumpkin, when I started making pumpkins 3 years ago, probably would have been a $30 pumpkin. But what I've found is the demand is higher than my supply. I also live in an area where there's not tons of chainsaw carvers. Once you get up into the mountains, there's more of them. But down here in the Piedmont area where we live, the foothills, so to speak, there's not a lot. So there's not a lot of folks out there making them. Therefore, supply can't keep up with the demand. So yeah, I'm going to show you how to make these. There's a couple caveats I want to mention. The first being, I am not a member of the safety police. I recommend that you work as safely as you can and you do what you're comfortable with. So wear chaps, wear a big face shield, eye protection, hearing protection, do all those things. Keep your area clean. I am not the poster child for that. I'm just not. So feel free to let me have it in the comments about how I need to be safer. You're right. Anybody, if there's someone in the comments that's on the safety police, those people are right and you should listen to them. That's it. That's all I'll say on that. But yeah, I think this is a fun project. You could, essentially make a few of these a day very easily. I looked back and it took me an hour to carve this, but that's with me filming. If you've ever filmed yourself doing anything, it takes twice as long as it would if you were just carving it. So I could carve one of these start to finish in about 30 minutes probably, and I could have it sealed in another 10. So just call it 40 minutes for this item. Now, I'm selling it for $60. Keep in mind that this is a full-time business for me, so I have overhead, and so I'm not netting $60. But if you were just doing this on the side and you were selling them for 30 bucks and it takes you less than an hour, or let's say it does take you an hour, $30 an hour, it's not bad money. So I definitely recommend that if you are just getting into chainsaw carving, or maybe you've been doing it for a while and you've never made pumpkins, these things do really well and they sell really well. I cannot make enough of them. I can't. There's no way I can make enough pumpkins to support the demand in my local area. That's it. This is probably a much longer intro than it needed to be. If you enjoy all this information, please let me know in the comments. If you think in future videos I should just show how to make the thing and shut up, I can do that too. But I do think that some of this information is important for folks, and I do think it's important to share it. Thanks so much. I hope you enjoy the video of how we make these pumpkins. You'll notice two things with this video. I have cut out the tool noise because it's a little obnoxious in my opinion. I'm going to dub over, explain what's happening here. At this point, we're going to shape out the pumpkin by creating this bevel by holding the chainsaw at an angle. And this is the bottom of the pumpkin. You'll also notice this video is in 2x speed, so it has been sped up so that it doesn't take forever to show you the process. We're going to turn the pumpkin over, and we're going to do the same thing with the top. We're going to create that bevel, giving it the shape that we want. This is more of a squat pumpkin, but you can make round pumpkins, tall pumpkins, gourd-shaped pumpkins. That's the wonderful thing about making a pumpkin, is that because it's organic, no two shapes are ever completely alike. Once we got that bevel all the way around the top, we're going to take the end of the chainsaw and we're going to carve in just a little bit of a divot where the stem goes on the top of a pumpkin. From here, we're going to carve in the lines or the creases that you see in a pumpkin. And I do this by making a mark across the top, straight across, and then cutting that down in 50% increments until I get the, sections of the pumpkin, if you will. And then from there, I'll widen those cracks. I don't know really what you would call them. I widen them up a little bit so that I can get the angle grinder in there in just a moment to really sand them and shape them out. So here you can see it's coming along nicely. You could leave this rustic at this point and not sand it, but I'm going to use an angle grinder to rough sand this. I'm using a DeWalt angle grinder with a flap disc that would traditionally be used in cleaning up metal. Now, I am very comfortable with an angle grinder. and I am never putting my hand, my second hand that I'm using to hold the piece, in danger of getting hit by the grinder. You really have to know where your hand is at all times with this tool. If you're not comfortable with holding it the way I am, I would definitely suggest using a jaw horse like you see in the video here, or screwing the piece down to a worktop so that you can use two hands on the grinder and not have to worry about coming into contact with the tool. I'm not trying to get too crazy with the sanding here. I do want these to look fairly rustic, so I'm using a 60 grit flap disc. This is as much as they'll be sanded, and this really just helps the pumpkin have that, you know, more finished look, so to speak, and while still maintaining a little bit of that rustic charm. Here we're sanding into the individual seams of the pumpkin, each section you can see there. This is definitely a messy process. Wear a mask. You don't want this dust in your lungs. This next step's pretty straightforward. You're going to use a drill bit. I like to use a bit as close to the branch size that I'm going to be using so that I don't have to carve it down as much. I'm going to drill down about halfway into the pumpkin, and then I'm going to take my limb and kind of test fit it there, see how much I need to remove. I'm doing this with an angle grinder. I've also done it with carving knives. You could do it really with all kinds of tools. I just have the angle grinder handy, so the angle grinder it is. A lot of test fitting to get it to where it'll actually fit into the pumpkin. And then from here, I'll decide how tall I want the stem to be. I use my little handsaw and I cut the stem down to the desired length. From here, we're going to use a 3.5-inch finish nail to secure the stem to the pumpkin. So I'm going to drill into the body of the pumpkin, making sure that I'm in line with the stem that is in that hole that I drilled just a moment ago. We'll use a hammer to drive it in. We're also going to use another finish nail so that we can seat it all the way into the pumpkin so that no one sees the nails even there. There you are, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, subscribe, leave your feedback in the comments. I appreciate it. And hopefully some of the information in this video helps somebody, whether it be identifying an item that does really well, sells really well, and it's fairly easy to make. Yeah, I hope that this benefits someone. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and take care.